Rob Nato, myself, Andrea Folsom. We're joined by Superintendent Mike Flynn, Director of Curriculum Assessment and Professional Development, Becca Gagnon.
It's getting easier each time.
Administrative Assistant Extraordinaire, Jody Condon, and our student representatives, Noah Aframe and Flo Kappas. So welcome, everyone. We're going to go ahead and start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. All right, this evening we just have one set of regular board meeting minutes from October 25th, 2022. Those are in the packets. You guys should have had time to take a look over those. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved. Second.
Okay, any discussion? They look okay? Great. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, moving right along. This is the first public comment portion of this evening. If you guys would like to step up and have any public comment, otherwise we'll do a second one at the end. We're good? Okay, great. Student representative comments. How's it going?
So today we had a student advisory council meeting. That's the one with the class officers and us and Mr. Kelly and Mr. Morrill. And so that was kind of our first one where we really got to talk about what was happening in school. And we brought up the midterms and finals issue, which is all tied into the competency-based education stuff. So it was just good to see what the other members of the council were thinking and just establish that we definitely were having midterms and finals this year and see how we can start getting that word out to the students, because there's definitely been confusion.
Yeah.
But I think we also had a meeting with Mr. Kelly, so we got to learn about sort of more the reasoning behind why midterms and finals were being debated, whether we should have them. We got to learn about the competency-based education plan. So it was good to talk about it. I think we're just all we have to do is just write an email and tell the students that we're having midterms and finals, but it was also good to have our first meeting.
Yeah, it was very productive. Overall, it was great to meet with all the, officers, that's what they're called. Officers, and the juniors will have something coming to the board soon, which will be interesting. What else is happening? The girls won the cross country team won the state championship.
Woohoo.
What is that? A 3-peat, 4-peat? A dominant.
Yeah, 3.
They've been dominant. Fall sports are just about over, and everyone's looking forward to the winter season, which is coming up soon.
Great.
Yeah. I think that's it.
Yeah, thank you guys. Board comments.
I'll extend the same to the girls cross country. Amazing job on them. You know, they had the awards for the middle school. Andrew and I were there for that. It was great to see our students recognized. What stood out for me for that whole ceremony was how confident our students were in doing public speaking. It is very difficult to speak in front of people at times, and they really did a masterful job speaking about their experiences as a team and how they're coaching their season went. So kudos to them for that.
I'm good. So I got to join Michelle Bickford, who's one of our 6th grade teachers. She was invited with some students from who were in 6th grade last year to present at the New Hampshire Supreme Court, which was really cool. So last year they piloted a mock trial. I think your dad actually was part of it, which was really helpful. And basically, it's run by Civic 603. It's a kind of bipartisan group of folks who are really trying to help increase civics education. And I just want to extend my thanks to Michelle Bickford. She did a really wonderful job representing us, as did the students. The students got to sit up in the very front, and we had a whole bunch of current and former justices there, members of the legislature. So it was a really very fancy affair, and Hopkinton was very well represented by both our teacher and students. So that was great. All right, anything else? Wonderful. We are on to current business.
Current business. So we talked about at the beginning of this year having targets for our directors and principals to report out essentially quarterly. So we are now, all of our principals and directors reported out on opening of school, right? And now we're essentially making our quarter turn. So tonight you'll hear from Jim, Mandy, and Patrice, and then you won't see them again until probably January or February in regards to anything outside of the norm. So first is up is Mandy.
So last week, Patrice and Carrie and a few others provided their goals for the year. So I really just wanted to kind of kick off with that, and then within those, I'll talk about some of the other stuff that we're already doing. So first is a curriculum assessment goal, and it's really just me working with the building admin, working with Rebecca, being able to support in helping develop and strengthen some of the district-wide systems that we either have in place or are looking to put in place. And to me, this is like the most exciting work. My master's program was completely around RTI, MTSS, well, let me go back, hold on, response to intervention, RTI, and MTSS, which is multi-tiered systems of support. So it's really just saying, here are all the tiers of things we have at a universal level, tier 2, tier 3 level, and here are all the supports within that system. So when we talk about response to intervention, when we talk about UDL, they all are supports within that system. So I am so excited to be able to dive deeper back in with this team and see where we can go to make it really consistent across the district. So for me, this goal, easily aligns with the strategic plan curriculum and assessment goals 1 and 2, and then obviously the board's goals. Finance goals, like every single year, is to be able to make decisions based on the needs of the students, but at the same time minimizing the impact to the budget. It's always the goal. It'll continue to be the goal. And then also searching for different funding sources, and then the strengthening of those systems helps with that too. So again, it's all connected. Communication goal for me, I think we talked about it a little bit the last time, is really just trying to make sure that we're talking about, one of the things I want to do is make sure we strengthen the website, the student services part of that website. There's some other things that we'll be working on too, but like on the professional development day on the 7th, I think that was the date, in October, we spent time as a group. I had all the case managers, the related service providers, and the school psychs with us, and I really just handed them a deck of cards that had a word on it, and each one was a category within which a student could be found eligible. And it was just, okay, that's your card, here's your partner, it was all random. Now tell me what information you think is important that we include about that eligibility category for our website, because I really wanted to get their feedback about what they saw was important. I know what I think is important. I'm going to add that piece too, but it was really great to get their feedback and have them participate in that with us. And we'll continue to do more of that as we go along and work to get that going. As far as personnel goes, is just really working with all of you guys to how do we get people in? How do we get people, when they're here, to feel prepared, to feel valued, and to continue to help support that. And then obviously policy in my role, it's not just special ed, it's 504, it's Title IX coordinator, I'm the discrimination person, so homeless liaison, all those things. So any policy that has to do with that, obviously I want to work with you guys to make sure that we have everything we need on those. So those are really the focus of my goals for the year. Any questions for me?
Well, I just want to add one thing that most people aren't aware of, that Mandy started here. So special education records you have to hang on to forever?
Kind of. No, it's 7 years after they turn 21, but we have to hang on to the IEP until they're 60.
So,
So they're when?
60.
Yep.
60?
They're changing them, but that right now, because if a person is to apply for disability anytime after between those two ages, they need to show a history, and that IEP can be a historical document that they can use for that.
So if you can imagine the amount of paperwork we have or had, one of the things we identified together when we first started was it needs to be electronic. So actually Mandy wrote a grant to get funded so that Matt worked on the company in which we scanned, but then Mandy worked on the grant to support. So how many hours? I mean, I can't, with the help of Jody and Jeanette, but
Yeah.
hours and hours, over 91 boxes were scanned in. So we're working towards having digital secure documents for 60 years. But that was, Mandy did a great job on that.
I actually had never been. This is a major blind spot for me, apparently. but to the part of the website for student services that specifically talks about special education resources. And so for people who are in the community and have been wondering about the difference between a 504 and an IEP and what an IEP should look like, there's really good resources that are on there, I think, broadly, so people can do self-education just like 2 clicks in.
Yeah.
And then the resource guide, I know it's, from a couple years ago, but there's a lot of good information in there as well.
There is, but some of it's old.
Yes.
So
totally.
it's really just kind of
updates.
coming back together and saying,
Yeah.
okay, here's all the updated information, and then putting it in a way, if we're, I have lots of ideas of how I want it to look, but I want to get feedback from case managers and families and things like that. But just to make sure it's like easily accessible, so somebody who's looking for specific information on specific learning disability eligibility, they can click on that, and then there's the information, or what can I do at home, those kind of things. So we're navigating how that can all look. There are good resources there already that we intend to either continue to use or whatever, but just clean it up in a way that makes it easily accessible to find exactly what you're looking for without having to look at everything, because it's too much to look at everything, even for me.
Totally. It's a
So,
lot.
it is a lot.
And then one of the other things that I was thinking about is you talked about at the beginning of the year, last time we heard from you, it was like you were still, I think, just coming out of basically being a morning bus monitor, a lot of like 5:30 mornings, all the good jazz, and now you're stable with a full staff. Is there anything that feels or looks different this year in terms of staffing and having everyone back at school and just being in like a more stable, normalized environment?
So I think for me, last year being my first year of kids full in, just being able to take the time to recognize, okay, here's the things that are really great, and here's where we can really move forward and make a bigger impact in that realm, and here's the things that we just have to admit that we need to brush up on and we need to get stronger at. So it's being able to identify those and being able to work with the people I need to work through to get that. And I think part of that multi-tiered system of systems that we were talking about earlier within the curriculum assessment goal will address a lot of those. So we've already started working towards how 504 planning works. We've already started working on a new wraparound process that is very, very clear, concise. Everybody got, here's what we're doing. And that's been, I think, really successful because it just helps kind of say, it's not a, we're going to go to wraparound for you, but you have an IEP, so you're not going to wraparound, but probably they should. So the wraparound is now becoming a process that's like, we're all in. So if you have an IEP, maybe in reading, but now I'm seeing a math concern, we're all going to come together and talk about that. Because you can have an IEP and receive RTI. It's okay, especially after COVID and trying to figure out where kids really are at. So I think that process is going to be one step closer to being able to just streamline some of the other things too.
And you're almost off the bus.
Almost. Yeah. This week should be my last week of mornings. Hopefully when I get back from my conference, the fingerprints will come back if you guys approve today that I'll have an afternoon monitor.
Yes.
Done.
Amazing.
Very excited.
Great.
Any other questions for me?
Awesome.
All right.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you very much.
Moving on to Harold Martin, Ms. Brown.
It's always so intimidating to stand in front of this microphone. I mean, it's been a
I
past.
think we need a table.
I know.
No,
Like,
We need a table and
the
a
past
chair.
couple
Yeah.
Tuesdays, I stand here and it's always interesting. So this is exciting. I looked back to September when I did the report out at the beginning, and we've come such a long way, and it's only November. Now, it's also weird that it's November. So we had our first joint staff meeting today, Maple Street and Harold Martin. We did a big staff meeting here. We had everyone come. We reviewed our school goals. It was a lot of fun. That's not on my update, but I'm just reflecting on how far we've come in 2 months. It's been really nice. So last week we had a book fair and kind of unofficial open house. It was fantastic. It was so great to welcome families back into the building. I've never seen so many people in the library. I am hoping that both police and fire were not in the building to see how many people were in the library because it was quite the scene. But it was wonderful. We had some technical difficulties with our book fair, and one of our machines broke, but everyone was so patient and kind as we waded through the list and got everyone to get their books, and we ordered some online, and we started thinking about different ideas. And it was really just a nice place. After not having people in the building, we heard so many family members how excited they were to be there, to see their kids' classroom. We had older siblings who, wanted to show off where their old classroom was. So from 3:30 to 4:30, we had all the classrooms open. We did a scavenger hunt. We encouraged families to go see all the different main pieces. It was really nice for families who couldn't make it in that 3:30 to 4:30. Miss Eaton and I were available and running around with keys and showing off the individual classrooms and kind of giving personalized guided tours. It was really a nice experience. My own kids were there. They went to the book fair. They got pointers that I never know what they're going to do with, but it was a really nice night. One of the other pieces that happened is we put a survey on the back of the scavenger hunt. So I don't know that all families knew that there was a survey there, but we did have, several families fill it out, and it gave us some really good information. 92% of the families stated that their students enjoy coming to school and feel safe and welcome. 80% felt that we communicated efficiently with them. 88% stated their students feel challenged at school. And then 75% of families said they felt welcome to participate in their school's learning experience. So that gives us some really good data to move forward and see the areas of growth that we have and where we can do better, and also what we're already doing well. We want students to feel safe and welcome. That's really important to us, so that was great that that was the highest percentage. We also asked about parent information nights and events that they would be interested in. So the biggest turnout was parents were interested in doing some work around empowering their students with positive self-esteem, which was really interesting to me. So that's something that we'll look into setting something up for. And then it happens everywhere. People always love family literacy and math nights. They want to come to school and do activities with their kids. So that gives us some information going forward for this spring of things that we can set up. We've been doing a lot of environmental things. It has been really nice and exciting. We're getting ready for plastic-free lunch tomorrow. So starting last week, Mr. Dismaris and I started weighing the trash after each grade level's lunch. Now, just so you have the full visual, we did use a bathroom scale. We stepped on it, we stepped off, we picked up the trash, we did it again, we did the math thing. It was quite the scene. I've got some great pictures of it. But our first day doing it, we had 72 pounds of waste after the end of the lunch. So that was right before our open house. So we used our open house to really kind of use that information. We put up quizzes and surveys, and we let them know that if we have 72 pounds of waste every day for an entire school year, it will equal the size of an elephant. Kids were like, a small elephant or a big one? And I was like, a big elephant, like the biggest elephant you can find. That really mattered to them. My picture was not of proportion, apparently. So that's been really nice. And then I've been going into classrooms and doing mini lessons about what single-serve plastic is. And, I've been really honest with kids about, this is a learning experience for me as well. And I have small kids at home, and we eat our bags of mini muffins and those little go-go squeezes, right? And those are all single-use plastic. So how can we make different choices? We've brainstormed with all the different grade levels about different things we can do in our cafeteria. I mean, the ideas have ranged from adding recycling to building robots out of our waste to clean the cafeteria. Very genius ideas. I love them all. I'm really in for the robot piece. So that's been really nice. They're really excited. Today we weighed all the waste again, and we were down to 51 pounds. So, and the kids are really aware of it. They ask, how much is it going to weigh? So we should really eat our apple because that's the heaviest thing on our plate, right? One of them said, well, can you not weigh on rice day? And I was like, okay. So that's a great question. I don't know about that. So it's been a lot of fun. We're having a lot of great questions. I was telling Jim I've become I'm going to go with the recycling principal. They called me the trash principal, which didn't feel right. But I was in the hallway, and someone came running up to me with trash, and they're like, do you want this for your lesson? No, I'm also, I have my own box. But so it's been a lot of fun. It's been a great opportunity. The teachers have been really supportive of pushing in. Some other things going on. We sent out assessment data last week, some fall assessment data. It has been a great conversation point with parents. I've got a lot of really good feedback. Parents really excited about having this data, about being able to have that conversation. I've also had some really nervous parents like, what does this mean? Which is perfect, and that's totally acceptable, especially kindergarten parents. And I've been really, honest with kindergarten parents that a lot of these kids are coming in just learning how to do school for the first time. They've never taken a test on the computer. They don't a lot of this is about teaching them how to do the test and the things. So we're not worried about it yet. We're pushing in our Title I support in all of our kindergarten classrooms, and we're really helping out. So we've got the right tools in place, and I'm really excited that we're empowering families to have these conversations and know what's going on. Yesterday we had our Halloween festivities. That was fantastic. If you were not on Main Street checking out the costumes, you were missing out. I saw dinosaurs and fairies and everything. We got all of our staff was dressed up. It was really nice. I have to give a huge shout out to the Spirit Committee and to the veteran staff at Harold Martin, because at one point before this all happened, somebody asked me what the parade route was. And I just kind of paused and looked around to see who was going to answer the question, because I didn't know if we walked all the way down and then we turned around, or if we crossed the road once or twice. And so it was really nice. We did cross the road twice. The chief was there to help us out. He got traffic on one end, walked down, got traffic on the other end. It was a very nice experience. And then they came back. They had a nice little snack, and then we went on our ways. It was a lot of fun. Let's see. Picture day. So kids from the elementary school today should be going home with their pictures. If in those pictures you'll also see a class photo. Those are not the real class photos. Those are the fake class photos. Disregard those ones. We retook our class photos outside in the outdoor classroom with the nice fall foliage behind us this week. And those photos are going to be the real class photos. So they did, because they wanted to provide us with the originals. The originals made me realize why I told them we were redoing it. So it just confirmed where we were at. It was fine. We will be doing picture retake day on November 17th, so that's nice. The only other thing, really, okay, I have two more things, and then I'll be done, I promise. I talked a little bit about Destination Imagination and the really high turnout we had from there. Melissa White from the Department of Ed, who's also a parent in town, reached out and let me know that there's also a grant in the works for after school activities. So I'm waiting to hear some more details on that. But with such a high turnout for Destination Imagination, it really kind of solidified what we already knew, is that kids want to do some activities after school, not necessarily sports, but more of the theater, creativity, art, STEM. So we want to look into seeing how we can do that and build up that piece. So that'll be really nice. And then the last thing is just kind of exciting, that on Friday we have Karen Du Bois from the Department of Ed coming to work with our kindergarten and maybe preschool around play-based learning. She's going to be doing some observations in our classrooms, giving us some feedback, talking to our staff and our teachers, and seeing how she can help really design something that is powerful and appropriate for Hopkinton and really capitalizes on, being 5. And that's, I think, the important part that we forget sometimes. Any questions? That was a lot of information. Sorry, I'm very excited.
I can tell, because it makes me really excited over here. No, and that's really great to hear that our leadership at their school is excited about what's going on and changes and all that stuff. And it really makes me excited. Last time you were here, we talked a little bit about parent pickup and drop off. Could you elaborate on any progress and improvement on that or anything?
I was trying not to talk about it. I purposely did not put it on my. No, it's been going great. Today, I will tell you that you could tell it was the day after Halloween, because the amount of cars who pulled in after 8 o'clock was very long, and I was like, "Oh, everyone is Halloween tired. It's okay." We stuck in, but it's been really good. We've been having a pretty smooth process where our pickup in the afternoon, all of our car pickup is done by 2:45. Most of the time, it's done by 2:40, which is really nice. It's about 10 minutes of movement of pieces. And then our walker pickup they go right out at like 2:35, and then our buses are going as well. So there's really different parts to it, but we really seem to have it down to like a well-oiled machine now, which is very good. And I will say, still my favorite part of the day though is the arrival in the morning. I'm out there most mornings greeting kids and families, and dressed up, not dressed up, you never know what's going to happen. And we have a really good time just welcoming kids in and getting excited about the day. So.
Thank you.
I'll corroborate that. I think that drop off and pickup was really fun, and the parade yesterday was super cute. In case people didn't see it, it was super adorable. And the fact that the teachers all sport team costumes were amazing.
We did a staff costume competition, so I actually should probably say right now that grade 3 won the staff costume competition. They were the Four Seasons, all right, and they killed it. It was pretty nice. If you did not get a chance to see Mr. Dismaris, our custodian, dressed as the Sorting Hat from Harry Potter, that was also a pretty good highlight. He came in a high second, and like not even the whole team, like the rest of us didn't count. It was just him and the Sorting Hat, but it was pretty nice.
And then the other thing, and I'll send like an actual separate note about this, but as a parent whose oldest child is in kindergarten, so I'm like a junior parent compared to a lot of the parents here, it was really great to get the assessment data last Friday, because it's like a really nice window into what the kids are learning and what their skills they're working on and what that is. And like, for sure, one of my kids definitely is learning how to take tests, so it's great to see that. But overall, I thought it was excellent. I thought the letter that you guys sent was very well written and very well done. And I know, and I said this to Mike, but like even just the operational process of getting all of those things printed and sorted and into kids' hands is a big one. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Other questions? I had a quick question about DI. When did kids get to try that out?
So, I knew you were going to ask me that, and I did not write the date down.
And that was Destination Imagination.
Yes.
You said it out loud already. So.
I did. So, Alyssa Marks is the district coordinator for DI. She sent out something to parents last week, letting them know that we were going to be doing Mondays and Thursdays, and I think that she was going to be starting pretty soon. We were looking for some parent volunteers because we had so many people. We need to have a parent volunteer for every X number of kids. And then we also were, she was going to do some information around competitive versus non-competitive. So the third graders have to be on a competitive team, but if a second grader wants to be on the third grade team, then they can compete. So it can mix and match like that. So that was a really, we had a long conversation about kind of how to set this up and how to break it up so parents could go if they have 2 interested kids. Like what does that look like? So.
And is it only going to be at Harold Martin, or will it be at Maple Street as well?
Right now, we're just starting with Harold Martin, and we're going to see kind of how that goes, and then we are open to exploring. And she was talking about, like, as the kids get older, there'll be more interest, especially going on later. So she's prepared to grow with it as well, so which is awesome.
Yeah.
It's a lot of kids.
DI is a really great, Destination Imagination is a really good program.
A lot of
kids.
Yeah.
A lot of kids.
Yeah.
A lot of kids. So we had to figure out days, and we didn't want to interfere, like, which we won't interfere as much, but originally we were talking about, like, Girls on the Run and making sure, but then we realized we were going to be at different points of time, so that would work.
Perfect. That's great.
Patrice, is the joint staff meeting, is that something relatively new? I don't ever remember.
I don't know the last time it was done. My staff came over here and they told me they hadn't been here in a really long time for a joint meeting, and the last time they came, they got parking tickets, which I didn't know. I don't know if that's true or not, or if it's folklore. I don't know how you get a parking ticket in a parking lot that the school owns. I was very confused by it all. I promised them if they got parking tickets, I would pay for their parking tickets today. So we got through that. It's been a long time, it sounds like. So it was really nice. Carrie and I were talking about, do we do it once a year? Do we do it once in the fall here, and then in the spring they come to Harold Martin? We think that that would be good because the spring, our after-school program at Harold Martin would be outside, and then we could have the NPR. Right now the NPR is used after school, and again, I don't want to put that many people in my library.
Oh, yeah.
Multi-purpose room.
Yeah.
There you go.
Gym.
NPR. The gym, cafeteria, auditorium, only meeting space in the building large enough for X number of people. So. I think I owe $1.
That's $1.
That's $1.
That's great.
Any other questions?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're good. Thanks.
Okay, last update of the evening, Mr. Grzicki.
Good evening, Jim Rzicki Facilities. Happy November. I was politely told that I speak fast sometimes and I can go through details, so I'm going to try to slow it down a little bit. I'm going to be brief. I don't have a ton of stuff, but I will do my best to be clearly and accurately and articulately said. So, couple updates on projects. First is the SAU work that was approved by the public hearing a couple weeks ago. The new office is complete. We got flooring done. We're finishing up some painting over the next couple weeks. I think it came out stellar. Again, props to our local contractor that did it all in the evening and on weekends, which really limited any type of disturbance. In the
Actually,
SAU.
zero disturbance.
Zero, yeah. I will go that far. Yes.
Be specific.
No sewage backups over at that facility anymore. I'm pretty happy with the job that Rotor did, and they were professional, did a good job on time. I think they did that 2 days after we even approved. They were like, yeah, we can get in there and do it, let's go. So that was great. Speaking of septic pumps, on the 7th of October, we had AAA pumps, replaced the 2 pumps. That went well. It was again, perfect timing. Things seem to fall in place very nicely there, and happy with that. No issues. However, this is kind of the running joke in the facilities with the principals as well. Every day I get a call about some kind of a weird smell at each location. It's a curse. Sometimes I can figure it out, other times not, but not at Harold Martin lately, so it was good. Yes. No insurance update on that yet. All paperwork is submitted. The adjuster was there. I sent them pictures. So I don't know where we're at or if Michelle has any documentation. So I don't know what the future of that is. We had the high school or middle high school gym floor refinished on the 20th, which was
No, it's stoked.
yeah, right in the middle of the school year. It was just a hiccup. I'm not going to go in and tell the story, but I just want to give props to the PE staff and the athletic staff for just giving us that day for the contractor to do the floor. Just with the product, it needs a good solid weekend to cure and be ready for Monday. And the contractor came in, did it on Thursday night, came back on Friday, put another coat on, had the weekend to dry. So we've been really getting some stellar contractors to do weekend work. So it's been really cool with no upcharge. So all ready for basketball season. The air handler was successfully installed. There's some may not think it was absolutely successful or right off the date. That's maybe the wrong word, but we had to get the controls portion reconnected. So Siemens was out a couple days afterwards to do that. Again, did a great job. While I had him here, we chased some heating issues in this building, and I think we were able to get those completed. And then the carpeting that was left over from the building project. Harold Martin was complete. Again, they awesome staff. We were able to clear 2 rooms by around teacher workshop day, and they did that well into the evening as well. We still have the library to do. That's obviously a such bigger animal because we're going to have to unbolt shelving from the walls and move some furniture around, a lot of heavy furniture. So we're looking at February break, so we have a full week in case we run into any issues. And then we still have quite a few rooms over at the high school. A lot of, wow, I was going to swear and say the condition of the existing carpet, but it's a lot of those rooms with really bad carpeting is going to be replaced in the evenings over this month of November and into early December, including the office. So we're making some good headway on that too. That's it for big capital projects that we had in the pipeline and scheduled. So I'll move on to a couple other smaller items. Well, not small in nature, but just, again, another plug for the principals for just getting their emergency operations plans done. They submitted them to the state. They gave me the receipts. They spent a lot of time on it, and some of them were 80-page documents, if not longer, that Mike and I had to go through and vet, and they just spent a lot of time on it, so I want to give them props for that. Good news, shortly after that, we received stern, firm scheduling with the Department of Homeland Security for the audits. So we have 2 this month, towards the end of this month, and then 1 on December 1st. So again, I'm kind of anxious for those day walkarounds and see what other security things have been revealed and what we've done for the last ones. No updates on the security grant from the state. They gave a general sometime this fall, early winter, so we'll get more update on that when we get info. So fingers still crossed. Little turn about my staff, the custodian staff and general maintenance person. Again, we struggled the month of October. We had a wave of illness go through our high school staff, and there was a week where we had 3 or 4 people out almost all week, so we struggled filling positions. Our general maintenance guy was in a school doing custodial duties for 7 days, and so work orders kind of we weren't aggressive in getting those completed because we didn't have staff to do them. Again, I'm not trying to air dirty laundry. I'm just telling you current state, and I know that's happening over with teachers and other staff as well. But again, I'm just super thankful that my staff rallied. A lot of them did overtime or did just extra hours, maneuvered their schedules around, got together, worked as a team, and I'm just really proud of how they responded to that and just were willing to pitch in. So our custodial supervisor, James, has really been the front man about how they're going to manipulate the night, and that's across the district. So he's driving over to Harold Martin, staying till 1 a.m., helping out, getting things done. So I just want to say that publicly. So good team. Again, if you see my staff around, just give them a quick thanks. It goes a million miles and keeps the motivation up. As far as work order is concerned, again, we had some struggles. Same thing with September. Overall, like in September, I gave the report of we completed 62% of the work orders that came in. In October, we completed 61% of the work orders that came in. However, again, and this is where I need to, at the future, show you some graphs of how we're doing. Like in September, we had 55 work orders just requested. In October, we had 83. So even though that gap, like in September, we closed 34, but we still managed to close in October 51. So work still got done. That's inclusive of preventive maintenance. Some of the preventive maintenance that I had my staff do, or my general maintenance person do, was close out summer, like still service our lawn equipment to make sure that it's stored properly, that things are going to work when we start doing stuff in the spring, blowing out carburetors and changing the oil still, and then also getting our snow equipment ready. Yes, I said it, the dirty 4-letter word. We're already gearing up for that as well. So that's that on projects and facilities. As far as me personally, and these are my last 2 points, I'm on 3, possibly 4 different committees, and I know there's been updates on a lot of those. So Dulcie gave a great update on CIP. We're really hitting that hard. It's taking up a lot of my time. Energy is kind of my love, and I've been spending a ton of time on energy. I know Patrice gave info about just waste, but I've actually been having a lot of conversations with Waste Management, our service provider, about where our waste goes. All the data I've been getting, I've been plugging into a shared folder with a group to get some more eyes on it and just get more education on it. So we also received some great materials from Waste Management about like what's recyclable, what's compost, how to do it. They have cool little cameras that attach to their big trucks when they empty our dumpsters. So I've seen a lot of those clips. They're like, okay, you're doing really good with recycling. We don't see a lot of contamination going into the bin. We're able to see that, engage. Unfortunately, they don't have anything to weigh our waste on the trucks itself, so we can't use that as a unit of measure. So, and then energy. I just spend nonstop energy, Eversource, propane, pellets, oil, portfolio manager through Energy Star. I just got that started today. We did some webinars. We're just going gung-ho on where our energy, what we're doing, what we did for energy spending over the past 5 years and where we're headed. And again, it's my commitment. I know energy is going to be a big piece. I don't want to go into budget stuff, but I know that's a huge driver of facilities, and I'm doing my darndest to keep that down. And but we got to really show where we're at and how we're doing as a district. So I intend to share some numbers in the future. And Dulcie's been awesome to work with and very communicative, and the team as well. So. Yeah, and then the rest of my days are walkthroughs with contractors. It's just getting quotes after quotes and getting information about materials and air handling and new changes to energy codes. It's a nonstop thing, but it's a lot of my time. But it's fun. I love doing it, and I'm still here. So, yeah, that's it for my update.
I'm going to add a couple things if you don't mind.
Sure.
So one of them is the temperature that Jim mentioned. So early in the summer, I identified with him, going back to when I first started, I met with the community member that was really big on temperature, and not just the board member that was high on temperature too, but the community spoke about the temperatures in our facilities. And so I brought it up to Jim, and Jim has identified pockets and has done a great job. The heat in this building, and as he mentioned, I just wanted to briefly say you've been killing temperature in the district. It really makes a difference from the workspaces to the office to the classroom. So great job on that. The other one is the safety action plan, which is a school board goal. Jim and I met today for about an hour and a half to lay the foundation. So we will have a foundational draft to you for the December 6th meeting. And then from there, it's your goal, right? So we'll do the initial foundation, and then you guys have to take it over from there to then determine all of the things, what you're keeping, what you're not keeping, what you might present, all of that. So that's what we'll have to you by December 6th. And then last is a little thing that Jim and I have been kind of working on the side on. So Maple Street got a new sign, Harold Martin got a new sign. We would love to dive into the high school with a new sign. And the thing is, we want a really good sign. So he got a company. They actually drive a truck out with the signs on the truck, and you can visualize what it would look like. We got quotes. It's going to be a challenge. So we said today probably about $35,000 all in. That's running the electricity there. That's the system. So we just talked about it today, but I said I wanted to talk about it publicly to discuss whether it is raising money, whether we tap in to work with the PTA, or how maybe we divvy it up where we as a district can do 10,000 PTA, all the things. So just kind of want to put it out there that we believe that the signage would be a significant upgrade to what we talk about outside. So just wanted to put that out there. So that's simple.
Replacing the letterboard sign?
Letterboards to an LED one, to double-sided, to all that fun stuff.
Yeah, secretaries will be able to put pictures up there and visual graphics, so there's going to be a ton of information on that.
And it would be timed out at night so that it would, all the lighting and all the things. So, but that's some of the other stuff that Jim's been working on. Now, any questions? Good.
Great, great.
I talked to you a bunch, so I can defer to everyone else.
I'm just going to say something real quick. You've done a marvelous job of meeting with a lot of people, and we met last week to go over some questions, which I had no idea about the energy usage in any of these buildings, and you were prepared. Like that notebook there, guys, is gold. Like he was able to go to every question and have the time when the school was built, what it's using, square, everything. And it's a pleasure working with you. You're really knowledgeable in what you're trying to accomplish and trying to preserve energy and find a plan for this community. I just want to say I thank you for your time and look forward to working more with you on the project. So
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I had a quick question. The October 7th replaced pumps. Those are at Harold Martin, right?
Correct. Yes.
I just couldn't remember. It was really a question for me. I just want to say that I appreciate that you give us what's working and what you're working on. I think it's really important for us to hear both sides and not always to hear, because things aren't always going great in the district, and I think the best way to tackle when things aren't going great is to know about it. So I appreciate hearing, the things that you guys are still working on as well. So else.
Can I chime in with a really quick update on energy? And corroborating. So Jim has done an amazing job of pulling together. Like one of our primary goals on the Energy Steering Committee is really thinking about what Jim said of assessing where we are, so we can understand how we want to forecast and set goals, because we can't really do that unless we actually know what we're using. And he has pulled together so much information. And we're really lucky because a lot of the students have gamely volunteered to do a lot of data entry, which is great. And just as a general note, we are working on scheduling flow. This is for you specifically. Getting a mixed committee together across sports, teaching, all of the things is complex. So we're working on a doodle, just so you know.
Okay.
There is a time in the universe when we can all get together, and it will happen, and it's going to be great. But there is a lot of energy, which I think is awesome. And Jim, you're an amazing resource for us to all learn from, and also to help shepherd us through a pretty intense amount of work that needs to happen. So we really appreciate it. Awesome. Yeah.
Can I ask a Caldwell question? It's CIP, but are you going to talk
We're
about?
going to talk about the end.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is Jim still going to be here?
Do you want to?
He's not going to be. I'm going to kick him out.
Okay.
So-
So I'm going to ask my question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So the question is I see that there's a metal roof to cover it at the gym, but to replace here. So why does it work one place and not the other? Just
So good question. So again, I'm going to talk in both different schools. So more specifically, Maple Street here. I think that the cow wall here and the light that it provides to this space and in the hallway is valuable, just because there's not a whole lot of other natural light in these spaces. Plus, with the new cow wall, it really does lend itself to energy savings, just with the amount of light transparency that's available now. I think we're going to be able to get much more light into this space and actually kill the lights. So I feel that's a viable place to go, and that's an aesthetic value as well.
So I think Rob's asking that the weird part in the gym, why are we tinning that over rather than?
well, I guess I get why we're tinning it over there. Sorry.
Yeah.
But I guess my question is, because it's a significant savings, right?
No.
That's a very
There's-
big amount of money.
There's 2 power walls at the high school. So one of them is being replaced because it will contribute to natural lighting and
Correct.
ultimately energy stuff. And then there's a secondary one where, well, you can explain this. Yeah.
Yeah, no sweat. So yeah, at the high school, there's 2 different areas. In the main hallway, the cafeteria, there's a spot over in the main office, and then the front here outside the octagonal room. There's all triangular cowl wall there, which again, not only by design, but gets more light into those spaces. I think that's viable. We looked at glass too. We spent a lot of time with Granite State Glass to see if actually glass would be a better option or less expensive. The answer was no, and the longevity of that is not as much as cowl wall. So yes, so here we get to the nitty gritty. The ridge over the gym. I believe that they just did that to marry up the roofing systems. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense in that space, nor is it accurately placed. So that's the reason for the
That's the
metal
one
roof.
that gets you.
And I actually stole that idea from you, thank you. Even before I started, when we met with Capital, that was a suggestion. And then my first couple weeks walking around that roof, I was like, yeah, Rob's right, that doesn't make a lot of sense. And yeah, for cheap money. But I feel we would take away from, I don't even know the right word, the aura or the feeling of the high school space if we were to cover up those skylights in the main hallway in the cafeteria.
Thank you.
Thank you. But I did explore more options than cowl wall.
It sounds
A
like you
lot.
explored a lot of options. I appreciate that.
You feel pretty confident. But we'll talk about it later.
Oh, there it is.
Other questions? This is great. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you.
All right.
You guys should all leave.
You're dismissed.
Thank you all for
Thank you,
coming.
guys.
Thank you
Taking
very
some
much.
time in the evening to present to us. All right. Moving right along. Okay, so we are at Pathways to Graduation. So we have Becca on this. I also had a little bit to present on this as well. I didn't.
You can open it up. Go ahead.
Yeah, so we began our presentation last meeting regarding our pathways to graduation. And, I know in the beginning we sort of talked about how this was committee work that we did for a full year, but I realized we didn't really talk about, we often talk about committees, but we don't really talk about why we have committees or what committees do. So I wanted just to take like a brief second before talking about the pathways to graduation to talk a little bit about committee work. So I know at the board level we have to make a lot of decisions, and the only way to make good decisions is to have deep conversations, and so that's what all of us do really at these committees. So nothing that is happening at the committees stays there. It really all comes up, tends to be discussed in some way at the board level, and then we make decisions on it. And that's really the best way to make good decisions, is to have those good conversations. And so the Pathways to Graduation was really a year-long conversation that was had. Rob and I were on the committee, but it was also really made up of teachers and teaching professionals from across the district, which was really helpful to have their input. And I know we touched a little bit on what the pathways were and sort of some of the why, but kind of going back to the beginning, really what we started with was, as a district, we believe in supporting all students, and we really want to make sure that we are supporting all students. And there is a subset of students who are not interested in going on to a four-year college, and we want to make sure that they feel as supported as the students who are going on to a four-year college. And that has been feedback that we've received from the community, from students, from teachers who will see kids go through. And so really where we started was, okay, if we want to support all students, what are any of the barriers to graduation? What do we believe in as values that we want to make sure all kids have access to? So we want to make sure that all kids have access to world language. That's something that they get in 7th and 8th grade. We would not want to take that away. What else would be helpful for students so that when they graduate, no matter what life after graduation looks like, it's successful for them? And how can we make that happen? And so the Hopkinton 2024, as we presented it last time, that's really just one piece of it. So part of it is a rearrangement of credits to align with the New Hampshire requirements for graduation, because not everything we had as Hopkinton requirements were New Hampshire requirements, and some of those things were not as supportive for our students as they could be, and so we wanted to sort of course correct some of that. But it's also going to impact, our program of studies, what we teach and when, and that's, I know, a big part of what Becca has been doing to help us really align that curriculum K-12. So that I just sort of I realized last time we didn't quite take you guys along with us, and really what ended up happening is a lot of the questions that you guys were asking, which were great, about what does this mean for world language, what does this mean for students who might not know. These are all questions that we had lengthy conversations about. So sort of similar to looking at the K-walls from all angles, really looking at how we truly support all students was something that we did. And I feel very strongly, and I feel like I speak for Rob as well, that what we've presented with the Hopkinton 20 and 24 really does support all students, so that no matter what graduation looks like, life after graduation looks like, that they will be successful. So I just sort of wanted to also provide that context around committee work, because I know sometimes we've received feedback that it's confusing what we do in committees, and we all know what we do in committees. And I know during the times of COVID, we would have to have those conversations here. We'd have the 6-hour meetings about masks, and now thankfully we don't have to have 6-hour meetings here. But so we don't have to have 6-hour meetings here, we end up having a bunch of 1-hour meetings on a variety of topics over the weeks. So that's it. That was my little spiel on the Hopkinton 2024 and on committees. Did you have anything to add? Sorry to just...
No, I appreciate that
Yeah.
very much. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think
maybe the only thing I would add is I recognize that this is a board goal that you had set for yourselves for December, and we did escalate that time frame a little bit by bringing it to you in late October, early November, because it does impact things like program of studies and some of the conversations that we need to have there. So we did not rush it to bring it to you. It really was ready to go, but we are bringing it to you earlier so that we can continue to work on some of those other components that will follow after a hopeful approval of this moving forward.
So we've had a week now to digest it. Are there any other questions or concerns that people had about the what we've put forward? You look like you were going to speak.
I was going to save it for discussion after the motion, but I just want to say thank you to you, Becca, for doing this. The only thing I will disagree with you guys is I don't think it'll be a small portion of our students. I think it'll be a lot more than that. I think there'll be potentially a lot more students going down the pathway for 20 credits, and I think it's exciting that we're giving them an opportunity to choose. I think some students are in a different course in life, and that now they have an opportunity to dissect that at an earlier phase of their Hopkinton experience. I think will pay huge dividends to them. You know, when we vote on stuff, it's always good to have a good feeling after you do it of accomplishment, knowing that it has an impact on our students' future. And one of these, tonight voting yes, I can have that good feeling of being an elected official, of setting this for our students moving forward.
And I would disagree. I don't think you're disagreeing with us. I think you're actually agreeing with us that this is important for all students.
Yeah, all students, and there'll be, I think, a lot of students taking 20, 24, whatever.
So I've thought a lot about this in the last week. As a former Hopkins student, this is something that strikes two paths in my brain. One is always thinking about what is best for kids and will help set them up for the best and success for life. The other part is thinking about, like, as a human, it would be like, why can't you take as many credits as you possibly can and have kids do that and be rewarded for that, whether it's work in the community or it's at the book or do whatever. That said, one of the things that I think is really important is that this committee was, in addition to board representation, was coming from a group of educators and being really able to think about what was going to tee them up for success. And even if the credit number is different, a lot of this, which I think is excellent, is essentially early intervention, right? So being able to have conversations with kids, and even though we don't know, every kid doesn't know in 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade what they're going to do with their life, being able to provide optionality in a way that helps support them, helps get them mitigation for some of these other subjects earlier if they're going to age out of those and they're going to be at the book or do whatever, I think is really, really, really important. And the great thing is we can see how this goes, right? It might be 5 kids, it might be 6 kids, it might be more, but this is something that I'll be very interested in hearing about how kids are engaging with this curriculum basically over the next 1, 2, 3, 5 years. Because I think that feedback will be really, really important. So it's exciting.
Anything? Going down.
All
right. Yeah, go for it.
I'm just going to jump in before you make
Jump
the
in
motion.
first.
So, just sort of a final thought for me on this, and Jim and I were chatting about it the other morning. It's, you see it when you're in school and you're like, I wish there was another way instead of just one way. And a friend of mine was posting some stuff about, the real question that tends to get asked is, where do you want to go to college? And the question we should be asking kids is, what do you want to do after graduation? And that's a much fairer question. We have things like career pathways courses, which show a whole range of things. And I think this finally gives that opportunity to say to kids, what do you want to do after graduation? And that's a much more equitable way of helping kids move forward with their lives than the focus, let's be honest, a lot of our kids go to college, so there tends to be that push in that direction and a lot of stigma that goes with that. And hopefully this is a way to start chipping away at that stuff. So I'm really excited and thank you to the board. Everybody worked on it.
All right,
All right,
I
so
can go for it.
I'll make the motion that the Hopkinton School Board approve the Curriculum and Assessments Committee's recommendation for pathways to graduation.
Second.
Excellent. All right, any discussion? No, I just want to again thank Becca for your work. Thank the committee for their work. I know that this was not easy to get to, so I really appreciate the board's support tonight. So, that being said, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Can I just add one comment now that we're
Yeah,
official?
it's exciting.
This time last year, we didn't have a CNA committee, right? This was a new board level established committee that we started last year. And when we started talking about the purpose of CNA, curriculum and assessment, it was about the evaluative pieces of what we're doing and what's best practice and what might not be, or what we can provide. It started with a goal of this, but now I know there's new goals at that committee level. So the powerful work behind curriculum and assessment, we're going to talk about at some point reevaluating our report cards. It's going to start at curriculum assessment. We're going to talk about midterms and finals. It'll come to curriculum assessment. So these are big topics that it's important to be board level, so that we as a community understand the work, as Dulcie said, between the educators and then the community and what we're doing. So kudos to this board for identifying another board level, because that's a lot of work on that committee. That's not a layup in any form or fashion. So great work by the CNA committee, and Becca leading the charge, and I can't wait to see what comes out of there next.
Becca, you have like the biggest smile from this. It's just great to see. Excited.
So this will next go to the policy committee, but it's going to be an easy policy to put together. So then this will come back as a policy that will have to be approved by the board as well.
And the administrative team with Mr. Kelly, Rebecca at the time, and now Jake, and then the admin council, all of them have had their fingerprints on it. So it has been extensive. So great work by everyone.
Yeah, and in fairness, there was a lot of work done at the building level. So this was a big push.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great.
Nice job. Moving on.
Excited about that. Yes, moving on. Budget.
Okay, so budget. So we're going to give a brief overview of where we are in the process. So when we presented through the work sessions and then last week, we're at a different pathway than we were last year. We were retraining this community on the moving the whole timeline up. And then what we're seeing this year is some of the preparation and planning has taken different avenues with, I'll say we wanted to do a fuel analysis. So we wanted to get tighter numbers on electricity, gas, propane, all that. We are really trying to find our way with the approved contracts. So working on where those numbers are coming in. So what I'm here to tell you tonight is Michelle's not able to be here, and I didn't think it was appropriate to move forward with a formal presentation if Michelle wasn't here to answer the questions. I'll call it the BA language, right? We all know that she knows some of those things that at her level. So that's going to get moved to the next board meeting. But the good and bad news, right? So the good news, the bad news is we can't have deeper level discussions tonight. But the good news is in a couple weeks, we're going to have a pretty firm number that we're going to bring to you. Unlike last year where we brought you a number and then we kicked it back and then brought you. So we've been doing a lot of work behind the scenes on getting towards that number. I know I'm going to kick it here to Rob, and Rob will discuss a little bit more at the level, but hopefully next week or in 2 weeks, Michelle will be here and we'll be able to answer those questions. I hope that makes sense. So are we good on the why? Okay. So now Rob, I'm going to kick it to you.
Just going to show Dulcie my spreadsheet so that.
Really? It's the best.
So we've been talking a lot in finance about what was initially presented and areas that we would consider, all of the, let's start with the positions that I don't think anybody would say those positions that were requested are not valid requests, but we also deal with the reality of budgeting. So we reviewed that, and most of those positions have been removed for the time being. So that number has come down fairly significantly to in the $500,000 range, where we were at 737. And I think it's fair to say that one of the reasons we felt like that was possible and maybe still provide the opportunity to service kids is that if hiring practices continue as they did last year, hopefully we find savings through those and then reinvest that money to elevate those positions to where they need to be to best service kids. Not the ideal way to do it initially, but that's the reality of some pretty difficult inflationary times that we're in. Just generally speaking, in terms of costs, we're right around the 8.5% overall mark, but it's really important to understand that 6+% of that are obligations of contracts with HEA, HES, Teamsters, and then of course, some recognition of what we will be doing in our admin non-union contracts. So that is a huge piece, and not a whole lot we can do there. The other 2.5% is really what I would refer to as the operating budget, all the blue sheets. And that's where, I gave this to Mike and Michelle with my weird little notes and asking lots of questions. And that number is about 2.25%. But of that, almost half of it, better than half of it actually, is inflation in energy, utilities, and transportation. So of that 500K approximate number, 262,915 is inflationary pressure. Again, not a lot we can do there. So we're really down to talking about somewhere in the order of $200,000 to $240,000. And everything else is obligations either through salaries or the benefits associated with those salaries. So I think, we've talked a little bit about the revenue side, but again, with not having Michelle around the last couple of days, we really feel like to get hard numbers and to be fair to everybody, we're just going to wait on that. But we are talking about using some of Article 10 and then using some of trusts appropriately. I think in finance we've talked about appropriate use of trust funds is for either a one-time expense or for something that was not budgeted that came up. So for instance, in special ed, rising special ed costs wouldn't be offset with that trust. It would be offset if we had a student move in or costs arise after our budget passed. And I think those are all things that will come out as we go through the budget process and talk to the budget committee. So it's going to be, it's going to be a period of explanation as to why the numbers are where they are. But it's also the due diligence of recognizing what the town agreed to do when we passed contracts last March and our obligations to being fully staffed and having level programmatic staffing, not only at the middle high school, but across the elementary schools. So happy to answer any questions.
So to carve this out, Mr. Nato, 6% of that is from the warrants that were approved last year for the teacher's contract.
So yeah, if you look at salaries and again the associated benefits,
Yep.
yeah.
Okay, so it's already locked in from last year, 6%, and then the other 2.5% is inflation costs, basically transportation costs, special ed, and all that stuff. Okay. All right.
Rob, can you explain just how the benefits portion of those teacher contracts are plugged into the budget so that you get to that number?
Sure. So part of what happened in benefits, so we've got healthcare first, and our GMR just came out, and it was
GMI?
I
think it's $10.
There you go, on the table. Guaranteed maximum rate for health insurance, which is forecast to be $600,000. But as part of that increase, it's also important to know that people move. Like, people have moved from two-person plans to family plans, from taking a buyout to getting individual or two-person plans. And we'll have those numbers. There's quite a few, probably 15 changes in total, right around there, 18. So those create. And, you know, let's also recognize the work that the board did with Hess in what we all agreed was a much more dignified way of providing health insurance for our employees, to go to the same situation that we have with teachers. So you're going to see an uptick there. But that was the right thing to do then, and it's the right thing to pay for now. So there's that piece as well. Retirement, there's a slight uptick there. We will be receiving some retirement revenue from the state. It's a one-time deal for this year. We'll see what the legislature does next year. So I hope that answers the question.
And the GMR, Garen?
I already paid, so you're good.
It's at 9.7, so that is the absolute worst case scenario.
We won't get final, yeah.
We don't get, then that's the hard part about that one. That one does not come in till
April.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that you have to protect the district. It's so challenging in our profession to have to deal with that, because that number could come down 100,000, and that would have been great to know now, because we could have, however we wanted to invest in it. So.
The other thing I'd like to mention in the operating budget, there's a series of lines called maintenance agreement, BUI. I say it, but I don't know what it is. And Jim left, so I'm not going to be charged $1, maybe next week if I say it. And that's a whole spate of things across buildings that cover fire inspections, alarm monitoring, sprinkler inspections, hood cleaning in the kitchens, et cetera. So things that we do that typically didn't have a line item or weren't necessarily budgeted to where they need to be budgeted to, that was $30,000. So that would have gotten picked up by fund balance, and as we move away from fund balance, or as a concept anyway, that needs to move into the budget. So those kinds of things are important to recognize, and that's why I appreciate these big blue spreadsheets, so I
And
get a better handle on stuff.
the other one that was always accounted for out of fund balance was food service.
I was going to ask that.
So we're about to get to the second chunk. So last year we identified 150,000 needed to be appropriately budgeted, and we made the determination last year that we would do half and half.
Correct.
So that other 75,000 will now, that's what we're presenting, to again move it away from always counting on a large fund balance.
Yeah. And on a personal, like, you look for savings, right? So one of the things that the transportation uptick was $96,000, $96,447. So I asked Mike to check with our bus service. We run 8 buses. Is it possible to run 7? We already know that bus routes are long, but there are people who do that perhaps could figure out a way to do it. What I didn't understand, or didn't know, I shouldn't say didn't understand, didn't know, was, because, when you drive down Maple Street and you see the bus stop and the bus stop and the bus stop, you're like, But you have to drop kids, what is it, through
There's an
5th grade?
obligation for pre-K through 6, pre-K through 5, that you have to see the human.
See the door.
delivery, yeah.
So that explains a lot of what goes on there and why perhaps we need those 8 routes, but it is something that we're exploring to see if there are other options. Ridership is way, way down, so if there's a way that we could collectivize things and reduce the bus route and not create longer routes. Most kids, if you're in the early part of the run, you might be 60 minutes in the morning and 15 in the afternoon, or flip-flop. It's a long time. So.
We're digging into it because, as Dulcie brought up earlier, COVID is more people working from home now, never went back, more drop-offs, less ridership. So does that mean we can evaluate 8 and condense it to 7? But the important part would not to have an impact on the kids, right? We don't need them getting on any earlier or getting off any later. So it would be really an identification of who's actually taking the routes.
Or more kids take the bus.
Or more kids can take the bus.
Think of all the Boy Scout projects that can be created building
Or Girl
places,
Scouts.
or Girl Scouts too, thank you. Nice bus stop structures. It'd be a competition.
Very nice. All over town.
The NATO project.
The corner of Sugar Hill and Bassett Mill, Have at it, right there. One student on that road.
Rob, do you also, can you remind us what the percentage that we are required to pay into retirement? What it is?
Oh.
I believe it's 35%.
Yeah, it's, so that, I don't remember the percentage off the top of my head, but it is fairly large and it has gone up. And that was something that started way back 2010, 11, where the state began shifting. So we are more and more acquiring those costs.
And state
So-
began shifting means state stopped paying.
Correct.
Yes.
Right,
The state stopped paying and shifted it back to the local level.
right.
So we're required to pay, but it is up to 35% now.
Thanks. So,
A lot.
you know, it's one of those things where, you know, people look to us as a board, but, you know, a lot of those answers are in Concord and with the legislature.
Yep.
There's not a lot of movement right now, but that could always change. So,
So that's our update. We felt it was more appropriate, and then on the 15th, we'll have some good slides for you, some discussion points if needed, but I think the number will be pretty firm depending on really the attack of the revenue and what we want to do with funds.
When will we have the revenue? Is it when Michelle comes back for the meeting, the one you just mentioned?
Yeah, I want to say it's, I don't, if I was here, I'd turn, but I don't know if it's the 15th, it might be the following meeting, the 6th in December.
Because really, I mean, the revenue dictates the tax rate impact, and so, I mean, I think for a lot of people, the percentage budget increases is very interesting, but I think it all, like, kind of comes to the ground when you see the revenue and expenses, and so having the revenue number would be helpful.
Yep.
I guess, you know, just a topic of discussion for the board would be around the retirement piece. So we know we're going to get about 114,000. We had discussions when I first came on the board about when we get one-time revenue, that, you know, the repercussions of that is that you're not going to have it next year, and then that's a tax impact. So how do people feel about using it in this circumstance as one-time revenue? I'm just...
I mean, I would just say if we're going to if we're going in with an 8% increase, then using revenue to offset that feels like the right thing to do, so the tax rate impact is low and we'll have to deal with it next year. So, I mean, I think that's a high sticker shock, and so I think the more we can alleviate that, probably the better.
See, I understand it's 8%, but I just keep going back to what was voted on.
All right, but the question on the table is about whether or not we should use the 114 in whole or in part. That's what I'm looking for feedback on. Because you could hold it back and it would end up in fund balance, but we're trying to move away from that.
No.
The reality is that we use it for revenue, and again, hopefully, talk to your legislators, talk to your state senators about the need to reduce the burden.
So once we get revenue, you guys will, the finance committee will dissect the trust and trying to figure out an overall tax impact based on, for our December 6th meeting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or maybe
Might be
maybe
the
our next,
15th.
it'd be the 15th.
Yeah, I need to
Could be
catch
the
up
15th.
with Michelle.
Yeah, no, I know that when we use one-time revenue, it does mean that the next year we have to oftentimes ask for, we oftentimes need to appropriate that through taxes, which I hate, but, you know, I think that we have some extenuating circumstances here, and using it to help flatten those peaks and valleys, it's just, I think that's what we're probably gonna have to do. And that's my feeling on it.
So if we kept it in fund balance, right, at the end of the year, we could transfer it to a trust, or we'd return it to the taxpayers, and we couldn't spend it, right? So
Correct.
those would be our two options. So it feels like if we don't need that, we could add it to a trust, but like we would use it as revenue at some point to offset taxes. I mean, that's the point of it. So it feels like doing that now rather than waiting to another year when we're gonna have impacts like we have from now. So it feels appropriate.
Yes. Okay. Thanks. I appreciate that.
Oh, I had another question. Ugh, it left my brain.
So Rob's going to join me next week with a discussion with the budget committee, and just to give them a little bit of a breakdown of where we are in our process. We want to continue to have the open discussion with them and where we are in our budgeting process. Get some feedback maybe from them to bring it back to the board. So I appreciate your time and joining me next week.
Look forward to it.
Yeah.
I'm glad that we've started this earlier than we used to, so that this isn't an issue at this point. And I guess, yeah, when you guys go and bring this information, I guess, while it's great to also receive feedback, I think it's really important to, help educate the budget committee on what we're doing and, how we're planning on moving forward with things.
Rob, just so when you look at our overall budget, and how much of the budget, percentage-wise, maybe this is my question, is made up of salary and benefits? Like guesstimate.
Guesstimate. Wow. I think, and benefits?
Yeah, sort of the personnel, kind of putting all the personnel.
75 to 80%.
Yeah.
Probably closer to the 80%.
And so if we wanted to reduce the 8%, I'm using that number just as it would be hard to reduce that number by pencils and pens. I mean, we'd be looking at benefits and we'd be looking at personnel costs.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, when we look at, what is the increase and what's not contractually obligated, we're really talking $200,000. So, yeah, there's a lot of places you can squeeze in these blue sheets, but you might save, 3, 4, 5, 10, 15,000. That's not going to make a big dent percentage-wise on the increase. And, I've said over and over, I look for those things because I think those small items add up to real money. So we continue to look, and we did a couple of $100,000 is out of there. So, yeah, it's all about salaries and benefits.
And you carved out positions, correct? From your opening statement, you said you went from 737 down to 590 or so?
Yeah, there were
It's
300 and
321 or so.
Those were the positions that was presented to us.
yeah, there was 321, and it's at 33.
So Mike,
So all the ones that were presented.
288,000.
Yeah, all the ones that were presented, the only one that we're going to present to move forward with is the full-time psych.
Are we still sticking with the 4 teachers from kindergarten to 6 like we agreed upon?
Level staffing, so we want to get that, that's all, so all the things end up being level. So eventually, once we get away from fund balance and we get to level staffing, when we get here in October and November, we should only really be debating that 2.5% each year. Right, we should only be debating the pens and the pencils. It shouldn't be about additional staff. It shouldn't be about that should all become level. And then really we're talking about that piece that we do have, really what we can manipulate.
So, again, just to sort of reinforce, historically, when I sat at a different table, you would negotiate a contract, and the idea was, okay, this is all great, but then sometimes when the calculations come out and you realize we have this expense, then there's the process of trimming positions or parts of positions to pay for that contract. And it always seemed like sort of an odd way of doing business. And I can recall as a negotiator for the HEA saying, let's negotiate a contract that we know that we can have, that the town will pass and people will agree to without impacting education. And I think that that's what we're asking again. And it seems to me is the view of the board as we continue to adopt this programmatic view versus a per pupil view, which happens at the middle high school and even at the elementary school. So
Level staffing, we're probably going to be, we anticipate using ESSER to help support it for another year, like halfway. We're still in that game of moving it only forward 55,000, I think it was, and then the following year adopt the other 55,000. So transitioning it rather than a whole impact in this year. Remember, we still believe this time next year we're all hoping that inflation's coming the opposite way, right? And that way, whatever happens next year won't. We've had this conversation. It's going to feel really different in March this year compared to next year.
you can always hope it's 2008 when I bought $5 oil and then in March it was $2.63.
Feels like you lost there.
Who's hoping?
Hmm?
Feels like you lost.
I took a loss.
Well, thank you so much for the work on this, and I look forward to the continued conversation with numbers.
Okay. Back to you.
Oh, now back to me. Okay. Policy. Okay, so tonight I am, it's an interesting side note, is the 50th anniversary of Title IX. So it seems fitting that, yeah, it is. Wow. Yeah. So tonight we're actually going to be talking about a Title IX sexual harassment policy and grievance process. So this is a required policy. It's required by statute. This policy is actually going to replace two policies that we already have on the books. So really what it does is it covers the sexual harassment policies that we had both for students and for teachers and staff, puts them all into one policy, and then really outlines the grievance policy as well, or the grievance procedure. So you can really see, it's really clear to everybody what the policy and procedure are, which is the goal. So this was in your board notes. I also had put it in the public folder. It is quite a long document that I do expect everyone has read because it's pretty important. I would like us to waive our 3 reads on this tonight, if you guys are comfortable with that, and go ahead and implement it. In order to do that, the first thing that we're going to need to do is we'll need a motion and vote on withdrawing 2 policies. So the first one to be withdrawn this evening is policy JBAA, sexual harassment regarding students.
Can I bug you to change the words of repeal?
Yeah, we can repeal it.
Okay.
Sure. So we'll need to repeal, I'm just writing myself a note, to repeal, a motion to repeal policy JBAA, sexual harassment of students.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
No,
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say, do we want to vote on the affirmative policy before we repeal the other policies in case the affirmative policy doesn't pass and we have no policy?
Yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense. So let's just table the current motion and second.
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Absolutely.
Why do we need to repeal them? Just because this overrides them, or why?
Yeah, this policy, it's sort of best practices to repeal, to when implementing a policy that covers what these policies already cover, but in a better, more full, and more up-to-date way, it's best to repeal the policies that it is replacing. If that makes sense. All right, so moving opposite of what I just said, is there a motion to approve policy ACAC, Title IX sexual harassment policy and grievance process?
So moved.
Second.
Great. Is there a discussion?
Can we waive the readings on the policy before we adopt it?
I believe we can. Yeah. I don't know if we need a motion to do that.
I think we should.
Do?
It's a school board
Okay.
policy.
Would you like to amend the motion on the table to include approving? Can we approve this policy, including the waiving of 3 reads?
We have to waive the 3 reads first.
Waive them first.
I'll table my motion.
Sorry, you'd be fine with
Thank you,
it.
Nora.
I'm gonna make a motion.
Doing great.
Just forget everything here.
Doing great.
So I'm gonna table my motion. I'm gonna make a motion that the Hopkinton School Board waive the 3 readings for tonight's policy, which is ACAC.
Second.
Excellent. Now is there further discussion? Look at us sticking to the procedure. Good job, everyone. Okay, there's a motion second on the table. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so we have waived the 3 reads. I then have heard a motion and second to approve policy ACAC, Title IX, sexual harassment policy and grievance process. Is there any further discussion on this one?
I tabled it, so I gotta make a motion again. Okay. So I'm gonna make a motion that the Hopkinton School Board approve the policy code ACAC.
Okay, I have heard a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Excellent. Any discussion?
I want to say thank you to Andrea for bringing this forward. You did all the work to bring this forward, which is really important. So thank you for putting it together and making this a priority for us.
Yep. And just as a side note, all policies that are referenced within this policy are all current and up to date, which makes me happy.
Perfect.
Great. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Now we're going to go
They remove the other one.
on and would you like to make a new motion to repeal JBAA sexual harassment of students?
I'll make a motion to repeal policy
JBAA.
JBAA from our policy.
Second.
Second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. That has been repealed. And is there a motion to repeal policy GBAA, sexual harassment of employees or staff?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
It's just important to note that we're repealing them because they're already covered in the policy we just passed.
Thank you. All right. Any further discussion? Nope. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you guys very much. I think that is great. And I think it's, especially on the anniversary, super helpful to have very clear and up-to-date policies on our Title IX sexual harassment process.
Awesome.
So that's it. That's it for me.
All right. Sorry, making a note as you're talking. Moving on to consent agenda. Very sad. Very sad. Very sad request to accept the following resignation from Amy Cook. She is on to some bigger things, and just on a note, has helped this district prior to me here, but during probably one of the most challenging times as you could be a school nurse. And she did a phenomenal job with both the students, the staff, and community members with the support, what was ever needed. So I don't want you to accept it, but it will be missed. The nice part about this is she is staying through the Thanksgiving break, so she's going to stick it out till the 22nd, which is great. We'll have that job posted tomorrow. Start interviewing as soon as applicants come in so that we can try and have an overlap between whoever we have there. So resignation from Amy Cook. Second part of that is the hiring, as Mandy mentioned, Tiffany Cronin for bus monitor. It's going to be huge to help to Mandy. I think last week I said we still needed it, and then was that Jody? Were you a part of that? The bus monitor? No, Jody's been doing bus monitoring as well. So this will help alleviate a lot of the stress coming out. So those would be it for personnel this week. On to the superintendent's report. In your packet should be the DC trip for March. In the packet? I'm looking at you. I know it's in my red folder, but did we scan it in? Okay, we can pass it around if you want to take a look at it. Okay, same form that we filled out for the other DC trip. Right here if you want. Okay. Graduation update. So kudos to the students, Dulcie over there. They problem solved, and so we're back on into the barn. They've done a great work group, great job.
That looks like there's like actual stuff, but no, totally. We're just.
I want to reiterate, that it was not driven because of the financial piece. It was driven because of the time and effort for our staff and us not being able to meet the windows of the barn. That's what the students took over and solved. So it'll help alleviate all of what was our challenges on our end. And Jody, hopefully, will not be involved in it anymore, thankfully. And they did a great job. So that's an update on that. We're working on a new company on finalizing essentially a new setup and breakdown, but we need it in writing. So they promised some things, but we need it in writing. So once that is finalized, I'll definitely come back.
Can I ask a question?
Yep.
Is this going to be a 3-year agreement with the barn, or
Yes,
is
it
this a
is.
1-year contract?
3-year agreement. Yep, that's part of the deal. Also agreement with the same company, all in writing. They're gonna store the carpet, because we can't do that, all of the things that we need in writing. So, great job by the students. Last is, I know Patrice brought it up earlier, but I want to reiterate the data going home and what Becca does. So this is more of a thank you to Becca. This is part of the hiring of this position, right? Pulling the data, organizing the data, creating the letter, and then repeatedly doing this. This is not going away. This is here to stay, and we're going to continue to share. But that's what one of Becca's role is. It is extensive. It is nuance, I guess is a good word, but great job by her in one of the early identifications of when we brought up it's PIP, right? PIP.
Yep.
Yeah.
You said it. I know.
And that actually came up that night of, you haven't seen it, we haven't done it, this needs to start happening. So kudos to Becca on that. So, no financials, as Michelle's not here, so with that I would ask you to accept the consent. Nope, I lied. Do you have any updates? You're good, okay.
Can I just say something really quick?
Sure.
The graduation thing just makes me so happy because I know that I felt like a lone sentimental wolf, like out on the prairie of specialness of graduating from Hopkinton. And it makes me really happy because I think it's a really special school, and like the way that we do it is incredibly special, and like the fact that students feel that makes me
Great job. The amount of work they put into it was impressive.
Can I just want to comment on the Washington trip. So I think it's, Kate Sintros has been doing this trip for a long time, and anybody who's done student trips knows how much work is involved. So to take freshmen all the way to Washington, D.C. on a bus through the night, do all the things you do in Washington, and then back is, yeoman's work in and of itself for as long as she's been here. She brought this back when she came to Hopkinton, but then to do it twice because she felt it was important for kids who missed that opportunity to do it. It's incredible what she does.
The spring trip will be the 10th grade, the makeup.
Yeah. There's a lot of excitement around it already. We still got a long way to wait. So.
I have a comment and a question for you, Mike. Just in regards to Amy, just a lot of gratitude and thanks for all that she's done for the district. She's been a rock for the high school and for the middle school for all the hard work that she's done, and we'll definitely miss her. My question for you, Mike, are you seeing a struggle in other districts with that position of fill-in? We've talked about difficulties with...
Yep, it'll be a critical shortage for sure.
Okay.
So we're gonna have to do some pushing and seeing what's going on. Tried to negotiate with my wife already, didn't go very well. She put some pretty crazy demands in, so I don't know if I can move that needle at all, but we'll try.
Awesome. Well,
We'll see how it goes. I'll update by the next board meeting.
okay, great. Thank you.
Oh, and I just wanted to say I've received some great feedback about the data. I've had parents, just sharing with me how happy they are to have received it. I've received feedback that the letter that went out that really outlined the 4 reasons why and how we collect assessment data it was very clearly written. I had one parent say to me earlier today, parents have been hungry for this for a long time. And so I think that there's a real appreciation. And similar to what I said to Jim, the data is not always going to be great. And that's just a reality. We don't live in a world where everything is always great, but the only way to know if it's not great is to know it. And so I think it's really, and I think Patrice alluded to it with the difficult conversations, I think it's so important that we share this information with our community, but it was done in a very thoughtful way. So I appreciate that. Any other comments, questions? Otherwise, is there a motion to accept the consent agenda by the superintendent as presented?
So moved. Second.
Okay. Further discussion? I think we said all the words. Great. Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. All right. With that, we are on to our second public comment portion of the evening. If anyone has any comments, they're welcome to come on up. We just need your name and address.
Comment 86 Maple Street. 2 comments. On the trust fund use, is there a definition of this? Because when we're, and I think you touched on it, I don't know if that's a formal definition or if it qualifies for all the trust fund, but moving away from fund balance, the new philosophy and spirit of the plan here is to fund these. Naturally, at the end of the year, there's going to be 100,000 going here, 25,000 going here. Are there rules and regulations, I believe you said one-time expense or something not budgeted for? Is there a formal definition of what the district can use trust funds on? Because this is a big shift from having fund balance, but I don't know when you're asking taxpayers to fund these if there is defined rules on what can and cannot. And I don't know if that needs to be specific for
So when those
special
warrants
ed's
were
in
created,
one lane and technology's another lane.
so when those warrants were created, and Jim would be the expert here, the stipulations for what they could be used for are articulated, and that's what voters voted on. So for instance, when we created the benefits trust last year, it is stated in that warrant what it can be used for.
And that'll mean when it's funded again the following year, it just stays in that lane.
Correct.
Yeah, and some have state statutory authority attached to them as well. So there's state statutes, and then when the town votes on them, that's the governing body by which usage of those funds can be used. And so when we use them, DRA approves how they're being used and the language that gets put forward by voters, so it's clear and voters understand what they're voting on.
DRA stands for?
Department of Revenue.
That's all I'm
And so on the district website, is that defined? And if it isn't laid out somewhere, that might be something that makes sense to have a tab that we can pull.
The glossary that we're working on?
We're gonna,
Yeah, is it in the glossary? If not, it could be, yeah.
Yeah, it's the glossary.
anytime that there's withdrawals from the trust, is a public hearing. Public is notified.
And then the second thing that I was a little confused on, there's 35% contribution to retirement. I'm not sure what that means. 35% of their salary, 35%. I mean, that's a big number of whatever. I know my work will match so much of mine, but 35% of what?
Yeah, it's 35% of their salary.
Of their salary.
It's required by law that the district pays that percentage into the state retirement.
State, so not necessarily to that individual.
No, it's the state
pension
system
fund.
because
It's
it's
a big
same as
fund.
fire, police,
Yep.
New Hampshire retirement system.
Yeah,
New
it's
Hampshire
a state.
retirement.
It's a state pension fund.
Okay.
And the state used to contribute to it and then stopped.
Others.
Yeah. So the state contributed more, and districts had to contribute less. But over time, they've shifted that away from the state contributing anything and onto districts having to what
And teachers
Yeah.
also contribute, obviously, out of their paycheck.
Out of their paycheck.
And that's what I was wondering, if it's a match sort of thing, but that's, if they're contributing, then it's going directly into their personal account. The
No.
35
No,
that
no,
we're-
no, no, no.
Goes into their state retirement system.
Goes into the state rate. This is the same as Social Security, right? So you pay your FICA taxes, it goes to Social Security, it pays for current recipients of that. Same thing happens with the New Hampshire retirement system. Current workers pay to the New Hampshire retirement system, they manage those funds, it pays current recipients. It is not a personal savings
A lot
account.
going into retirement.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Talk to your state
We know.
representative.
Yeah, so when this shift happened, it was
Excuse me.
a significant financial change for local school districts when we started having to do it.
And historically, the New Hampshire retirement system, as I understand it, has been underfunded based upon what its commitments are, so they're still in catch-up mode.
You can go on to nhrs.org and you can learn all about the New Hampshire retirement system. It's fascinating.
Good time.
But that nugget helped. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well,
Other comments?
Tricia Lambert. I don't think this thing's working. Tricia Lambert, 305 Galloping Hill Road. Budget. I'm still struggling a lot with these ESSER funds because what I heard said tonight was that the ESSER funds could carry the personnel costs for another year. And so, understanding budgets, it sounds like to me is that it was bloated at some point with these funds, and then at some point it's going to come home to roost. Is that we're going to have to, as taxpayers, pay for that. And I've been saying this for a while, and I think that what I would ask for the taxpayers is that you make that very clear on what ESSER funded and how it affects those rates going forward. Because I think that's only fair, because it is a bloat. I will tell you, I accepted ESSER funds from the airport side. I understand how it works. So eventually, at some point, that money is going to be missing, and you're going to try. And that's not level funded. Level funding was down here before they showed up. And so I just wanted to make that pretty clear. That's for them so they understand it. Another thought. I guess that's it for now. But if you could go
So
ahead.
the DOE has actually just put up a link on their website, so you
I've
can
seen
go
it.
by school district and see what towns have done in terms of how they use their ESSER funds. Some
Right, but
use
it's
them for salaries.
your requirement to tell them, because
Right,
most
and
people
we-
aren't going to go to that, and
Right.
there's going to be a vote.
But
At
we've
some
done that
point-
through the budget process every year and identified our use of revenue from ESSER.
Well, ESSER is, well, I know we're, 3 years into this, but and it hasn't come. You've received influxes of money, ESSER 1, ESSER 2, and ESSER 3. So at some point, like you said, to maintain level, we can kick it another year. And those are key words, kick it. You're kicking it. It's not something that was there at the beginning. Now it's there, and now you're going to call it level funding. And that's the truth. That's what I think people should understand. So, and I would say, one more point, is that, it's pretty clear you all understand the inflationary issue, the fuel increases, the food increases. At some point, and I'm concerned, like for my older neighbors and for some of these families, they may not have a house. So we have to really, if you could really keep that in mind, is that it's great, we want to educate the kids, and I'm all for that. It's just that we need to kind of keep that balance, is that if you have people leaving or having to lose their house, they may not be able to put food on the table. So I would just keep that in mind. Their kids are going to go to school and they're going to get their lunch, but they may not be getting it at home. And so if you could really keep that in mind and keep those people in mind, especially our older community members, because they're on a flat income, and I know you've heard this a zillion times over the years. Please keep that in mind. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, any other public comments? No? All right. Okay, I'm going to go ahead then and close public comment for this evening. Moving on to other business, old business, and committee updates. I believe we have an update from the CIP committee.
Yeah. So broadly, the CIP is meeting every 2 weeks, and one of the things that we're trying to work through is being able to, Jim, as we heard, is doing, I think, a really awesome job of walking through the buildings and understanding what our needs are. And the goal is to be able to basically develop a multi-year plan so we can start to look at what that prioritization list is of things that we need to address in the building, so that then we can match that to what an appropriate and responsible amount of appropriations will be. And over the course of the next meeting or two, our goal is to be able to basically triangulate into what a number and a target list would be for the next few years. We are obviously pending any emergencies, anything else, so that we can, as we pull together the broader budget perspective, like towards March, so we can start to sort of dial in what numbers will look like and be able to provide some forecasting into future years. In addition, as everyone could recall, we were very fortunate coming out of the building project surplus to have about $403,000.
403,907.
Thank you, 403,907. Thank you very much. Of surplus funds, which is a minor miracle given construction costs over the last couple of years. And so Jim's been working really hard and working through feedback from us to think about what would be the projects that could be that could basically be funded from that 403 number. And part of the piece here is that we also want to be able to address things that had been previously identified as part of a potential building project discussion. And so it's being able to tie that through our documentation and look at what that is, as well as looking at what the priorities of what the buildings are. So of that, we landed at 403,625-ish, so we are pretty close, which is great. We have a little bit of furniture that needs to go into Harold Martin that just wasn't funded, which is $1,000. Everyone has heard us talking about temperature at the
at the middle high school. One of the big sources of that is the RT unit, which is the HVAC unit for the auditorium at HMHS. It has been on its last legs for, I don't know, a couple years at least, if not many. And it's notable that we're shooting for a cost of $94,000 there. We can't actually pin that number in. We have a hard quote for it, but the regulations for refrigerants and coolants is changing as of January 2023. So we have eyes into what that will look like. We have a really good conversation with our HVAC specialist. Jim, I think, is doing a lot of work to be really proactive about it, but we just won't know the actual final number, dollar amount, until we actually know what that legislation is going to look like and how that's going to drive the market. As Rob brought up earlier, we have a cow wall here that we'll be replacing that'll help with lighting efficiency, heating efficiency, also roofing issues. Similarly, another large unit at the high school, and then we'll be covering that sort of annex seam piece at the middle high school between the gym roof and the old part of the building. And last but not least, there is a window wall at the middle high school in the music room that is deteriorating.
Good word.
Yeah,
Like that word.
deteriorating. It just needs to be addressed, and that's like a final $19,000 that will come in that gets us to that 403,625 number. So these are the projects that were recommended to move forward with. Again, it's furniture, HVAC for the auditorium, 2 cow wells, or cover for a cow well, and the music room window hall.
And in the spirit of what we spoke about earlier this year in soliciting work and the bidding and the new policy, these came under the, well, most, except for the AC unit, all the other ones came under the new threshold for the policy, so we've attached the quotes so that you can get a look on them if you need to.
Yep.
So we said we would communicate with the board that.
So I think Jim's crushed it on this because the building committee was really torn with the Caldwell for a long time, and Jay was pretty much screaming at the end of the meeting like that's one thing you really want to see done, and I had said that was something we would definitely look at, and I'm very happy to see that it's on this list. My question is, everything on this list at some capacity was discussed in the building project, correct? Okay, that's awesome. All right. And then this amount would now bring the bond down to nothing.
Correct.
Okay, perfect.
Yep. And it's worth noting that there are additional projects that we looked as part of this that obviously don't fit within that budget. They get moved to the priorities for coming years for CIP.
Yeah. Okay. I think that is important. So we did ask Jim to put these investments and to prioritize them, and so we were looking at a bigger list, but we asked Jim to put them in order that he thinks they should be spent. So that's how we ended up here.
Yep.
That's awesome. This is.
I'm still struggling with Caldwell on $174,700. I understand what Jim said about better efficiency, the lighting, and all the rest of it. I get that, but I would love to see what the savings would be if we did a similar strategy to what we would do with the gym roof and with interior lighting. And I think that's a fairly simple thing to test, where they could be temporarily covered for a day. It's as simple as a really, really big tarp, and just see how dramatic the lighting changes. That's an awful lot of money when it seems like there's a much more.
And the challenge I have less of a challenge with like the hallway. I have more of a challenge with the yurt, because that feels like a waste to me, but they also need to be replaced, and so like we don't have another design idea of what to do with the yurt. But so anyway, I think the benefits of them in the hallway are, I mean, it's natural light coming into a space that's going to be dark, and so I mean we could put fluorescence, but that just seems I'm not sure that's the right way to go. But the yurt does. All those cuts are expensive, and it just, I don't know. I understand we have to replace it, so this is the best option. I just wish the yurt wasn't there to have to replace.
Is the yurt connected to, like, does it have to? That was going to be my same question about the yurt and the call walls. Like, can we do metal on the yurt? But I don't know how they work, so I'm not sure if that's even
There was
an
like
option.
a cutting and a seaming issue. we talked about these a lot because we know
Just,
that
like,
the
take
tall
off
walls
the
are a tricky
yurt.
thing. The other part that's hard is that when you look at like another roofing product, and being able to look at the longevity of what it's providing and heating and everything else that's going to be in there, this product has come a long way. So even though it does look like a large cost from the overall efficiency of what the building is going to do, it is significantly better. And call walls are significantly better now than they were when they were installed 30 whatever years ago. But we can certainly ask Jim because he has done, I think he's looked at a lot.
Yeah, and I would say it was a little bit the opposite, Rob, on not the tarp and more what, it was the opposite of what he explained this morning was the new, it's going to be far greater than that, and so you'll actually have the lights off in here all day long. So you'll be saving on the electricity. And
Got it.
didn't he mention?
Yeah.
He did. I think. I mean, to be fair, I think if you costed it out, we're not gonna save. Our electric bill is not going to be reduced so much that we're going to pay for the call wall. I think it's an aesthetic piece as well. I mean, we can turn the lights off and that's great, but I think if you penciled it out over 20 years, I don't know the electricity cost for that corridor will be paid back in the value of this, but there is an aesthetic piece that I agree when Jim presents it. I think he's right.
Do we know if the company is doing a better job with how they are warrantying their, I mean, this was 22 years ago and they're cooked. So,
Yes, he did speak to that, and it's a significantly better project. Like, we're talking about warranties for everything that we're looking at when it comes to roofing coatings, like being able to think about that. Definitely the same for the call out. He also thought that like the heat refractive index or something that happens that is better with these. So yeah, yes, yeah.
If you want, well, like I said, if you want Jim to speak to it, we can certainly have him do an executive summary or instead of a meeting. I want you to feel comfortable. The reason why the committee felt comfortable with everything that we explained. So it's up to you on what you want.
I can call him.
Okay.
I had a question for you guys about that HVAC system. Is that the one that has the refrigerant in a closed loop, and so we basically have to replace it? Is that the one that we're talking about?
This has been on the.
And every year Michelle's like, yes,
It has been on the high problem list for a very long time. This current unit uses a refrigerant system that is bad. And also very expensive and hard to find. It's also ineffective, which is why anytime talks about a drama performance happening in the auditorium in the spring or summer, it doesn't really work. And we're talking about a heat index that is very high and localized in a way that is deeply uncomfortable for our students and staff.
I think a bottle of R2 is about $1,000 right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And
this will not be that.
that will not
No.
be that.
Perfect.
No.
Darcy,
Support that.
what about the money from the building project was alleviate pressure on CAP down the road? How much of an immediate impact do you see
All
this?
of it,
Was this
yeah.
already in our CIP that you guys were?
Yes, we've been debating the RT unit, the call.
Could you guys? I can't hear. Just.
Yes, these have been high ticket items that we've been looking at for multiple years at this point. And one of the things that's amazing is that these are high ticket items that when we think about them in the context of other large projects that we have on the CIP, totaling together was either thinking about like how are we actually going to be able to pay those expenditures over time? Does that have to look at like a fixed cost bond? Like how are we actually going to appropriate money towards that? So this is a significant check off the list.
Thank you very much.
And how much was the CIP last year? 200,000.
200.
And so this is $400,000. So it's double what we spent on our CIP this last year.
Yeah.
So and they were all investments we're going to have to make. So
That's awesome.
It's a pretty good.
And this is a way of
chunk.
like warrants down the road, are going to fluctuate because we were able to use this to alleviate pressure in the CIP. So it kind of helps.
It helps reduce the list of the
Yeah,
CIP.
it definitely. All right, this is great work. Thank you guys.
It's very committed. No, I appreciate all the work that you guys did. I think that, and I'm comfortable moving forward with this tonight as well. I think the only feedback to give to Jim is if there was any way to reduce the cost of replacing the roofing in the yurt, do that. Do the least expensive option. I just don't feel comfortable putting money into a glorified entryway. So
I don't disagree with that.
Yeah.
So it could be something the gym look at, and if we had another option, I mean, the problem is that's our entry to the building.
Yeah.
And so if we had another idea for what the entry to the building could look like, that might help, but I'm not sure we do, so.
If
But
we do
then,
at this point, yeah. Excellent. Okay. Do you need a motion on this evening, or are you just?
Nope, it's, so
moving
that's what
forward?
the CIP is.
Perfect. I love not making motions. It's the best. All right. Is there anything more that you guys wanted to share? Sorry to cut you off.
So this is final.
For
This is-
CIP.
Yeah, we'll look at the call-off questions and then we can.
But this looks, I mean, thank you guys for your work. I think the deep conversations had in committees. Excellent. Otherwise, discuss when the next committee meetings are. So we have a policy committee meeting on November 10th at 8:15 a.m. Curriculum and assessment, I forgot what my letters meant, meeting on the 17th of November at 3:15. I don't know when other meetings are, but these are all also listed on the website, the main page. Are there any other committee meeting updates? We meet every week, so I think we're doing well. Great. Is there any need for a non-public this evening? I don't have one. No?
Not here.
Okay. Is there anything else you guys, I'm sorry, I spent a lot of time turning this way. Anything else that you guys wanted to add to anything you've heard us talk about?
I don't think so.
Great. All right. Well, with that, I'm going to go ahead and end the meeting at 7:32 this evening.